The idea of what the Philippine meta really means has been a key part of the storytelling of MPL Philippines Season 11. Now that we have seen 4 weeks of action, I think we've seen enough from the teams and collected enough data to get a good idea of what the Philippine meta really is. Keep in mind, I will be focusing mainly on MPL Philippines in this video. However, I will bring up some mentions of MDL Philippines from time to time as a point of comparison. To better understand the key things of what makes up the Philippine meta, we need to know the numbers behind it all. We'll start things first off with the top 5 heroes per role. Now when I say top 5 heroes, this is the top 5 heroes picked per role. So let's start things first off with the junglers. You have Fredrin, Martis, Hayabusa, Akai, and Karina, with Lancelot being behind Karina. For the EXP lane, you have Lapu-Lapu, Yuzhong, Glue, Benedetta, and now Arlott. For the roam, you have Ruby, Lolita, Cho, Kufra, and Diggy. For the gold lane, you have Melissa, Carrie, Claude, Beatrix, and Brody. And for the mid lane, you have Valentina, Forza, Faramis, Kadata, and Eve. Now with these numbers, we know the preference of type of hero per role. For the junglers, there are 2 choices: tanky fighters with control/damage immunity and or high burst plus crowd control to safely secure objectives, yet also act as another option for dealing damage. Assassins are also another option, usually picked up if the tanky junglers are off the board or the lineup already has a strong enough front line to help hold for the assassins to freely do their thing. Assassins such as Hayabusa and Lancelot are mobile and can safely secure objectives with the kits they have. They also have high chase potential for when their opponents are running away after a team fight. Karina also falls under this idea for assassins despite being built for defense a la Tanksalot. The idea of being able to safely secure objectives as much as possible is one of the main reasons why Hanzo Jungle has been picked a couple of times in MPL PH and why it is a frequent viable option in MDL Philippines. Now for the XP laners, lane holding, wave clear, and overall map presence is what's given a lot of focus. Hence why Lapu-Lapu, Yuzhong, Glue, Benedetta, and Joy were the priority picks before Arlott came around. But another element of what preferred EXP lane picks have is their ability to disrupt enemy formations in teamfights easily. The idea of them popping their ultimates and forcing opposing teams to scramble, scatter, and protect their back line. Think of the ultimate of Lapu-Lapu, Yuzhong, Glue, Benedetta, and Joy. All of them force teams to change their formations mid-team fight. Add to that, the heroes that I mentioned all have respectable team fight longevities, meaning that they can spread out the use of their abilities to fight as long as possible. Their skill cooldowns are pretty fast, and or they're not overly skill or ult dependent, meaning that they are more than just their abilities and their ultimates. For the roamers, it is simple: control and disruption. We think of roamers mainly as initiators, setters. They're definitely that. But to simplify things even further, control and disruption is the main principle behind roamer picks. You control the tempo of the game by getting vision, getting to key areas to understand enemy rotations. You have control abilities to set up fights and to peel or provide space for your members. And most importantly, utilizing your abilities to disrupt what the opposing teams want to do. Ruby, Lolita, Kufra, Cho, Diggy, all of these heroes that I mentioned really do what I just said well. Gold laners, we already know really well. They're usually the main damage and win condition of lineups. Thus, teams would just like to draft the best possible marksman for the picks present in the field. All the marksmen I mentioned so far are mainly physical damage based, but this season, we've seen teams who can play magic damage gold laners such as Harith and Nathan thrive as their opponents have to consider those options in the draft. Tendency for when gold laners are picked in the draft are for blue side as one of the last 2 picks, and for the red side as the 3rd pick, since teams can leverage the second drafting phase as a means to get the most favorable gold lane matchup possible. Again, this is just a tendency. It doesn't always happen that gold laners are drafted like this. Sometimes they're prioritized the red side, then blue side picks their marksman with their second picks, and both teams are just going to be handling the rest of the draft to give the best possible complement pieces to their marksman. Most favorable matchup possible and filling in the gaps of damage/scaling requirement, that's the thought behind drafting gold lane. Last but not the least, the mid laners, what we commonly call as supports. As the holders of the mid lane, they have an important job of being able to support all the lanes and jungles, handle the middle minion wave, rotate to help the side lanes, help protect your jungle, help get info on enemy jungle, be in sync with junglers and the roamers with the rotations and combinations. At the same time, mid laners have to position themselves well in fighting or pick off sequences because they'll be dealing a good amount of the magic damage, usually magic damage, or because the value of their ultimates bring to the table, they will be hunted down by the enemy as one of their main priority targets. But they themselves are great hunters as well, since their damage target priorities are usually the mid laners and gold laners of the opposing team. The lives of mid laners are not easy, hence why strong utility, survivability through sustain or mobility, and of course burst damage either up close or with long range poke are essential to mid laners. We've talked about pick priorities. What about ban priorities? The 8 most stable bans this season so far in MPL Philippines are Glue, Diggy, Kadita, Fanny, Faramis, Kaja, Joy, and 1-1. So with all that being said, what exactly is the Philippine meta? Well, to be honest, it depends. Or more accurately, it's conditional. We all know the 3 stages of the game: early game laning phase, mid game third turtle / first lord power spike, and of course the late game at around 12 minutes when the enhanced lord starts coming out. Majority of the hero lineups that we see have multiple individual and team conditions around them, but they are always made with the idea of objective team fighting for the turtles and the lords. Outside of the objectives, players and coaches have a great understanding of each hero's strengths and weaknesses. Now, not only their own, but their opponents as well. That's why teams look cautious. They're always on the lookout for conditions to be met. Does a specific hero have a certain ability available or not available for them? Do they have their battle spell? Where are they positioned? Do they have their escape mechanism? Do they have the item they need or what we need to watch out for? That and so many questions. So right now we've established 2 things. The Philippine meta is condition and objective centric. Everything that we see on screen committed is done because of this checklist of conditions. Because of this, the Philippine meta is very, and I mean very, respectful of timers. Battle spell cooldowns, skill cooldowns, roam boots blessings, the shield and the turrets that go down at 5 minutes, objective spawn timers, item timers, all of that and more. Because of how respectful the Filipino pros are all of that, they take extra care in making sure that they have an advantage around the major timers of the objectives. A kill won't be chased just for the sake of a kill. It will be done so because of an objective timer. A roamer won't set just because they can. They'll do so because it will either force a battle spell or get kills that will translate into other objectives. Objective conversion is a key principle. Kills alone aren't just the objective of the game. It's setting multiple advantages for yourselves all throughout so that you have the best possible scenarios set up for you when you start fighting for or securing the major objectives in turtles, lords, and turrets. Knowledge of conditions, priority of objectives, and respect for timers. These are the 3 main foundations of our Philippine meta. But, and here's the thing that you have to understand. This is pretty much the foundation of all of the global MLBB metas that we know. The foundation of all MOBAs, really. Conditions, objectives, timers. Add to that the idea of trading, accepting that actions will always have a positive or negative outcome trade you have to consider. So, if that's not exclusive to the Philippines, if we see other regions and countries doing it, what then is the Philippine meta? Why are the Philippines back-to-back world champions and MSC champions? Why are our players and coaches sought after by teams from outside the Philippines? What is the Philippine meta that is desired all over the world? Simple. Everything that I mentioned, the Filipinos do best. We're world class, baby.